Professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
We put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
And good afternoon. Welcome to the show. I'm Rusty Lozano, your host, and thank you for joining us. We have a really good show today. Actually, it hits pretty close to home for me. My parents divorced when I was 16 years old, and I know other families and other friends that actually went through similar things in their lifetime where their parents either were separated or they were divorced. And so then visitation, they would go and spend some time over at one parent's house versus the other. I was a little older, so it was really, I stayed at my mom's and then my dad would come pick us up and we would just spend a little time over there. It wasn't as substantial as it is now. Today we're seeing households and visitation with kids and parenting where there's 50%, time is split almost 50% of the time with one parent over the other. So our topic today is parenting in split households, and I have a great guest. I've known her a long time. She's a good friend. But let me get into some statistics to kind of set up our show. In an article published by the APA, excuse me, the National Center for Health Statistics, the NCHS, reported that the likelihood of a couple that will celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary today isn't much greater than a coin toss. 52% for women and 56% for men. Similarly, the Gottman Institute reported the average rate of divorce is between 42 and 45%. And if you throw in permanent separations that don't end in divorce, then the overall likelihood of marital disruption is pushing 50%. That's two 50% statistics from two different sources. That being said, of all children born to married parents this year, 50% will experience a divorce of their parents before they reach their 18th birthday. So let's think about something. Does parenting in split households have a negative effect or any effect on on these children that are going to the split households or being parented in split households? What if one household is more loose or less strict than another? Are the transitions children experience from one parenting style to the other, is it healthy for a child, or are there some things that we should be aware of? So joining us today is Susan Fletcher, Dr. Susan Fletcher, Ph.D. She's a licensed psychologist with Fletcher and Associates. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So those are those are substantial statistics, 50%. Mm-hmm. And you know, the overall likelihood of a child who's 18, what do you think about that? I mean, does that sound relevant? And
I think it's on target. It's exactly what we are seeing across the nation. It's not something specific to Texas. It's something that is seen in a variety of communities. And so when you hear that, I don't know about you, but as a parent, it makes me think about how disruptive that is to a child's childhood. And I try to think about how to prevent it, but unfortunately, it happens. And we have to figure out what to do about it and how to help children stay healthy despite their parents' divorce.
I've read articles where they've identified the unhealthy. There are emotional and psychological diagnoses and psychological conditions that actually they derive from a divorce household.
Right.
A divorce is pretty traumatic for a child.
Well, divorce can be very traumatic for a child, but an intact family with parents who don't get along can also be damaging to a child. So, I'm real clear with the people that I see clinically that I don't decide for you whether you stay or you go, whether you stay married or you get a divorce. That is such a personal decision for people. But you have to create a healthy environment for kids in a family, whether you're an intact family or you're a family in two separate households. So that's usually how I approach it, because there's so much judgment that people feel when a marriage fails, especially if they're not the one that has initiated the marriage ending or the reasons why a marriage ends. So really, if we're going to look at it from the kid viewpoint, we have to look at whether it's an intact family or two separate households. What are the things that can create a healthy environment for kids to grow up in, where they, whatever the trauma is or whatever the disruptions are in their childhood, don't go on to interfere with their ability to have healthy relationships going forward?
Do you think that a child should learn what caused a divorce?
You're going to be surprised by this, but I'm going to say no. I really don't, because it's hurtful. If you're going to take a 12-year-old and tell him that your daddy had an affair with his secretary, or your mom ran away with the tennis coach, or, be more descriptive about those things. Many times, while kids may say they want to know, what happens is there's this difference between truth and trauma.
Right.
So in an effort to tell the truth to a child, or a child wanting to know the truth, we can create further trauma. So I'm not saying you lie to your child, but what you do is you have to create a place of emotional safety for your kids.
Yeah.
And it's enough that the adults know what happened, but kids really can't understand it. Sort of like what's going on right now with a hurricane, and, when there's events that happen that kids see on the news. While they can absorb the information, they may not have the ability to manage themselves emotionally to deal with having that information.
And I think that, if you're in a situation like this, the parents are going to be hurt. An individual is going to be hurt. There's one story versus the other. And so the chances of being objective and not tainting or not influencing your own emotional hurt and pain or your own sense of righteousness would be really difficult for a person.
And you and I know that happens a lot because we hear the stories. So I want to be clear that I don't think that kids need to have all the information, because I don't know that they know what to do with it. And what happens is they start to align with one parent and be mad at the other parent, and then they get confused as time goes on, because they still have feelings for the other parent, but they want to still align with the parent who gave them the information. And then what happens is they don't have a place of emotional safety. They start to emotionally try to take care of the wounded parent. So that's why I'm not saying you just say, yep, it happened, it's over, we're going to divorce, you're going to live with dad part-time, me part-time. No, I'm not saying that you do that. That's the extreme. But I am saying that you have to look at the difference between truth versus trauma. And there are a lot of instances that I see where the parent passes on the truth as they see it. And much of it may be true. I'm not saying that it's a lie, but they pass it on to their child thinking it's best for the child to know what their other parents like, and it causes further trauma. So as someone that works with families that are dealing with highly conflictual divorce, which is part of what my specialty is, that's what we see happen all the time. And the trauma is very difficult to treat for a child. So that's why I talk about truth versus trauma. So you can give just enough truth that it doesn't cause trauma. Sometimes for kids, it's enough to know we have had some things happen in our marriage that are not okay, that are not repairable. So in an effort to continue to be healthy co-parents for you, we realize that our marriage needs to end, but our ability to parent you together needs to be intact, and we're committed to that. And so that's the relationship we're going to maintain, and we're going to do you proud. Now, those are my words. Those are such clean words, okay? It's really hard
it's excellent.
to say it.
That's excellent advice, and I think it's an excellent way to move forward with this, because I think that when you see kids come in much larger sizes than they ever did in my time. You're seeing kids that outgrow their parents at 12, 13, and 14, and they look very adult-esque.
Right.
But can they handle this kind of information? Can, just by their appearance and seeming like they're old enough to be able to understand what's happening,
Right.
really, you're going to cause more issues.
Right, because they don't know what to do with it, and they don't know what to do with the emotions they're feeling to self-soothe. So that's why I go back to that phrase. We have to create a place of emotional security for our kids whenever there's trauma, whether it's a hurricane we're hearing about on TV, or it's, something happened to a classmate, or a family member has a difficult diagnosis. All of those things, we have to be careful, because as parents, our job, in my opinion, is to create a place of emotional safety, not be a source of trauma. So bad things happen, and we have to focus on how we're going to cope with it rather than the why did it happen.
Right.
And so it's at the expense of the how do we cope with it when you keep spending time on the why.
And the why, it may be hard to kind of get around. So there may be some things that a parent, like a rebuttal or an automatic statement that they have in their mind.
Right.
Listen, we didn't get along, but we both still love you. So the reasons that we were divorced, it doesn't matter why. But the important thing is that we're still going to be in your lives,
right,
and we're here to
because that fosters emotional security in a child. But when a parent says, well, that woman that lives down the street that you see your dad talking to all the time, well, they're together, and you need to know what kind of man your dad is. And I could say it about a woman, too. It's not, I'm being stereotypical, but I'm going to tell you. And so if you start saying, this is what's been happening, that time we were on vacation, your dad was on the phone. Okay, you start giving all that, kids get a visual. Mm-hmm. And then they don't know what to do with it. And then
it smashes and destroys the image they have of the parent. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be hard to recover from that, because now they're going back, and they could be seemingly erasing childhood memories. Well, the whole time that this was happening, even when it was at my birthday, when we went to Disney World, this was going on, so he was tricking us, and it would be really difficult for a child to manage this. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this segment. Stay tuned.
The Russ Martin Show.
What are the little fish that hang under sharks?
It's the ones you always see like in Shark
Week. But what are they called?
Pilot fish. Pilot fish, yes.
Why are they called pilot fish? It's not like they're driving the shark.
No.
What are you doing? I'm driving this shark.
The Russ Martin Show.
Not to be left out, there's Leprechaun in the Hood, which came out in 2000, which was...
Oh, man, he had to have a field day stealing gold teeth.
Tomorrow morning, 7 to 11. Talk Radio, 1190.
Guess how many Americans are unhappy employees? More than half. Maybe they're like Michael, who was going nowhere, working for peanuts as a utility company security guard. Then, Michael went to My Computer Career and ditched that rent-a-cop whistle for an IT career in less than 6 months. So if you're unhappy, see if the computer industry is for you. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. At My Computer Career, you could start a new life as an IT pro in months, not years, even with zero IT experience. Attend classes on campus or live online just twice a week to get the skills and industry certifications you'll need to start your new career. My Computer Career is nationally accredited, and financial aid is available for those who qualify, including the GI Bill. Classes start soon, so go take the free career evaluation at mycomputercareer.edu. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
iHeartRadio has all your favorite music, all your favorite stations, all free. iHeartRadio makes it so we're always with you, right in your pocket. Take your station with you wherever you go. iHeartRadio keeps you connected so you never miss a thing. Plus, if you want variety, you can check out thousands of the best radio stations from all across the country. It's super easy. Listen at iHeartRadio.com or download the free iHeartRadio app now.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello, and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we're discussing parenting in split households. And just before the break, we're with Dr. Susan Fletcher from Fletcher and Associates in Plano, Texas. When we left the last segment, we started to discuss how kids seem very adult-esque, and it might seem easy for a parent to go in and start talking about things but emotionally they're not able to handle it, and what it can do to a child's memory, going back and recalling, well, how could this have gone on? This was happening the whole time. So you were discussing how a parent can just by recounting this is what happened and it happens,
Right.
the child is not able to actually manage it.
Right.
Yes.
So every parent going through a divorce needs to leave room emotionally for the children to have a relationship with both parents. And the way that you lead, because that's in children's best interest. That's what all the research shows. That's a good long-term investment. Even if you think the person you were married to is a scoundrel or scoundrelette, whatever, the man or the woman, that even if you feel that way, your child has a relationship with that parent separate from you. So parents have to be careful when they're going through a divorce that they don't confide in their child or use them as a source of support, because it delays their ability in their own relationships later. So it feels good as a parent because then, you feel like you're justified in telling your child something. But instead, what you have to do is realize they have a relationship with the other parent, and it will backfire on you as a parent. I believe it very strongly. I see it all the time. If you give too much information to that child, because while they may seem receptive to it, later they're going to reject it and they're going to be upset with you for it. Once they start to figure out what you've done, they'll feel like you campaigned against the other parent, and it hurts your relationship because it's stressful. But it's not an immediate thing, but it's the thing that we see as therapists working with people going through a divorce. It's the thing that happens with kids. I have lots of kids who have divorced parents who come back as adults later or come to me for the first time as an adult saying, I want to rekindle a relationship with my dad, but I know that feels disloyal to my mom, or rekindle one with my mom, it's disloyal to my dad. So it's about loyalty. And so we're talking about emotional intelligence here. I mean, let's just use the phrase. And so if you really are invested in your child having healthy emotional intelligence, then you will do things to foster their ability to handle things rather than campaign to get them on your side. So one of the phrases I tell parents to say is, because children will ask, you were saying how they look like they're older and they look like they can handle it.
Yeah.
Kids actually ask.
They will.
So, and you know what? That's not a problem, but it's how you respond.
And it would be, and there is a concept, emotional incest, like it's emotional incest, I want to say ancestry, where, I think that you can divulge too much personal information and now start to rely on that child as a crutch or somebody who's helping you, and the role switch.
Right. So we're used to using that word clinically when it comes to sexuality. Okay. You and I are using that word when it comes to emotional ability.
Right.
So I call it fusion a lot of times, is that you have to watch out because kids will mimic you or adopt your way of thinking. And then just like we know with politics, this is the example most people understand, you talk to them about who the best candidate is. And then as they get a little older, they start choosing the candidate that you didn't choose just for the, just to show their independence, their emotional independence. So we have to be careful because when that fusion happens, you don't realize over time that fusion will go to the extreme the other way. They will polarize from you, and they will hold you accountable and be angry at you.
Right.
So a good thing to say when kids start asking you questions, why, what happened? Is it that lady down the street or whatever? Is it that man that, gave me tennis lessons, whatever? That a good thing to say is, you know what, while I would really like to tell you that, and I know you want to know, I'm not going to, and let me tell you why. Because I'm your mom and that's your dad, or I'm your dad and that's your mom. And right now, what I'm going to focus on are not the marital issues with you, because that's between your mom and I. And so, but what I want you to know is I want to do everything I can to help you have a good relationship with me as well as with your dad. And so me talking to you about marital issues is not going to help any of us, because that's the reason we're not together anymore. We have to focus on going forward, and that's the phrase. Use the phrase going forward. How we're going to operate as a family with two separate households.
Right. And if there is a need for more emotional support or more of an emotional need, to really seek out professional help.
Right.
Let's switch gears for a second.
Okay.
How about rules in a split household? I'm thinking if one parent wants to seem like they're more of a fun place or a looser place than the other, that there might be some bending here of the rules and some continuity with how things used to be. Is this a common?
Very common. And it's common among a parent who feels like they're in the one-down position because they're doing things to try to get the kids to like them better. So, like, I have a family that I worked with that the dad would allow the teenagers to have alcohol in his home. But the mom never would allow that because that just wasn't okay with her. And it's not okay with the law either, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's against the law, but also it wasn't her value. So dad would allow that. So the kids would go over there and have their friends over there, and they would drink alcohol because dad was more permissive. Okay, so here's one option. Mom can contact dad and say, that's inappropriate. You need to not do that. But I don't know if dad's going to take parenting advice from mom.
Right.
And I don't know that she would take.
And it might even be to spite the other partner, right? The ex-partner.
But it feels like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But it could. It's fueled by some of that. So this may surprise you, Rusty, because I don't always say the answer people think that I'm going to say, but I think it benefits kids that two households may have different rules.
Yeah.
Because in the workforce, we have different bosses. And there's different rules there's different rules at my parents' house, and I'm 54 years old, than there is in my house.
Right.
And my kids even know that. So we have to be adaptable. That's a really important skill for all of us. But what I think, so let's use the example with the alcohol. So what the mom's choice would be, in my opinion, the best choice, is to teach her kids about healthy alcohol. Never mention dad. Don't mention all that stuff over there. She can say, I know y'all drink over there. I'm not okay with it. And I want you to know, I want you to learn to be responsible drinkers.
Right.
This is what I expect of you. And then she has to do a very good job of role modeling herself responsible drinking. Take an Uber with friends when she's going out. So that she's not drinking and driving, and make it visible to the kids, but not lecturing to the kids.
Sure.
Because that is your option in your household. Role model the responsible behaviors, because in the other household they're staying up to 2 playing video games or on school nights.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you have to be able to talk with them about being responsible about your schoolwork.
Right.
But you don't mention dad's household. It isn't me against him or her against me against her.
Yeah.
It's about what's in the best interest of your kids and hold them accountable where you can for those things.
Absolutely. And it's not to say that the household has to be the exact same. I mean, you're talking about two separate personalities, partner and partner, and then now this is what their realm would look like if it was just them. So if differences occur, and there are differences in time, curfews or types of foods that we eat, that's going to be kind of a common deal, but the essentials need to be communicated. Hey, Johnny got a 50 on his test, or this project is due, and he needs to do the makeup work. So parents do need to communicate those things and collaborate for the health of the child. And that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, so I'm not saying do it in isolation, but I am saying that there are some things that you have to watch it, because if your marriage failed because you couldn't communicate, you're still going to struggle when you're trying to co-parent. So you have to look at what are those things that are better in my control. So let's use the 50. You got a 50. Somebody got a 50 on a test, or a teacher calls and they're a behavior problem. Clearly, I'm a huge supporter of both parents need to have that information. The conference with the teacher needs to be with both parents, and don't sit there and tell the parent it's the teacher, it's the other parent's fault. You have to focus on where do we go from here, going forward, what's expected of us, how can we best help our son. Those are the phrases to use rather than talk about the backstory and the 50 reasons why it's happening.
Yeah.
And then talk about and allow yourself to be guided by the teacher about what she believes that child may need, and then give your input. So you have to come together on those things, but I don't want anybody to think you have to come together on a united front, because that's not true.
But there may be some people out there maybe shaking their head. They're like, no way, I am not talking to that ice queen, or I'm not talking to that, that guy. Are there options that a parent can have to maybe mediate something like that, a communication?
Well, there's things called parenting facilitators, and they're therapists who are trained. The Texas Family Code in Texas outlines what a parent facilitator's role is. And you can have, and many people, when they get divorced, have that option. And that parenting facilitator is the third party who's trained, and it's someone with a license like ours that sits down and helps you all learn the skills you need in order to address the differences for the best interest of your child. A lot of people, when this happens, when there's that kind of conflict between parents, they think the child needs therapy. Okay, well, the child may need some assistance, but if the parents are still having that much conflict in the presence of the child, or the child feels torn, then it really is the parents that need to go in there, because they're creating the environment of emotional security. So a parenting facilitator or a therapist who's trained to work with people who are having that much conflict post-divorce, that is a really good person to go in and see periodically for a tune-up. And then be willing to accept the feedback. And
it's not that a parenting facilitator is there to try to mend the relationship between the two households, but it's really to kind of help mediate. Okay, there are some things that need to have continuity for the children, and that's what you have to let go of. I'm not giving in to. I'm not going to do what he says. I'm not going to do what she says. But if if you're going to have your children visiting for the sake of their own health and continuity in their own world, I mean,
Right.
this is a necessity.
And their future in healthy relationships. So it's important to recognize and be willing to say, I need some assistance. In our community, one of the things people can do is they can Google parenting facilitator and put Plano, Addison, wherever they are, and or people that specialize in working post-divorce with couples to deal with things. They're couples that I see periodically just to come in and get a tune-up, and it's the only time they're in the same room with each other. And they're very good over time saying, okay, going forward, how do we handle this? I mean, we have that about summer camp. There's conflict about all things. Summer camp, whether they can dye their hair blue on the ends.
Right.
And I don't ever think any content of the argument is minimal. I think it's an opportunity to learn how do you deal with things as co-parents in the best interest of your children, rather than who wins or loses.
And if you do have a child that wants to dye their hair blue or pursue music or, dress differently, to look at, the child and allowing them to have that flexibility to develop the person that they want to be,
right,
without saying, look at what that person is letting our child do. This would never happen over here. And so without like stomping on a child's own identity,
Yep, you're right.
Identifying and growing and developing.
Those words are mistakes, to blame it on the other parent, because then the child feels like they've disappeared. And that's not emotionally a very good feeling at all.
Not at all. And they can get swept away and never and start to suppress and not become the person that they're supposed to be.
Or get louder.
Absolutely. Go the other direction. Louder. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will pick up our conversation on parenting and split households with Dr. Fletcher. We'll be right back after these messages.
After work.
See you guys tomorrow.
After picking up the kids. After a long day.
See what's going on here.
Hear Michael Berry.
You got to get after it.
The Michael Berry Show, weekdays at 5 on Talk Radio 1190.
At 24 Hour Fitness, we have workouts to suit every side of you. Yoga for your inner guru, treadmills for your inner track star, dance classes for days you want the spotlight, and high-intensity circuits when you're fired up to get things done. And since our studio classes are included with membership, you can take whatever you want at no extra cost. So whether you're feeling fierce or simply finding your flow, make every side of you happy by joining the club today. Facilities, classes, and amenities vary. Not all clubs open 24 hours.
As a small business owner, you're always on the go. So how can you make sure you never miss a customer's call? Grasshopper. With Grasshopper, you get all the features of a business phone system. That's right. Grasshopper turns your cell phone into a business phone system that's affordable and incredibly easy to use. Get a toll-free or vanity phone number that's memorable and professional. Customers are forwarded to your phone and connected to you or your team wherever you are. And with our app, your outgoing calls and texts show up as your professional phone number. We'll transcribe your voicemails and send them to your email so you can determine their importance at a glance. So whether you're always on the go or working from home and need to keep business calls separate, or you simply want a professional tone, Grasshopper makes it happen. Set up your account in just minutes. There are no long-term contracts and support is 24/7. Get your calls, stay connected, thrive. Now get $20 off your plan when you visit grasshopper.com/radio. grasshopper.com/radio.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we are discussing parenting and split households with Dr. Susan Fletcher, licensed psychology with Fletcher and Associates. On our last segment, we were discussing rules when a child goes from one household to the other in creating continuity and trying to communicate about the essentials. And when a parent's not able to do this on their own and there's too much spite or too much hurt, they can seek mediation through professional counseling to kind of help with that so that we're not overlooking what the child's needs are. I want to switch gears for a bit and talk a little bit about a common thing that occurs in split households, especially after a divorce, is custody. Which household is better for a child? And this can actually get pretty ugly in a lot of cases. And seeing what the other partner is up to, or trying to present as the other parent is not fit. Do you run across things like this a lot,
Yeah,
Dr. Fletcher?
and I will tell you that most families that divorce do not need custody evaluations. Most families, no matter what anybody's going to tell you, most families can do this on their own, where they figure out what's in the best interest of the child, or they agree on standard possession or 50-50, whatever it is. We just hear about those families that can't and feel resentment that they have time without their child and they think they're the better parent. And sometimes that may be true, but that's a subjective decision a parent might make, and if you can't make the decision on your own, then the courts will decide it for you. And many times what happens is a family will have the order to go through a child custody evaluation. Now, I am one of the people in the Metroplex that does child custody evaluation, so I'm not going to get into specifics about different cases to protect what I do and the families that I work with. But I can tell you that process is very difficult on families. So what we're really going to talk about are the majority of families that are trying to deal with the custody issues that are already decided. They're not going through an evaluation, but there's a decision, but they're having trouble implementing it, and they're having trouble keeping it and having it be successful. So, when it comes to custody issues, first of all, you have to, this is one of those times I wish I had my whiteboard and I could draw all this stuff for everybody because I want people just to imagine that there's a relationship between the parents, and many times it's conflictual after a divorce. Not damaging conflictual, but conflictual because they're trying to figure out how to do this, and both people are trying to start a new way of life, not as a married couple. And I don't mean dating. I mean, a woman that hasn't worked in a long time now has a job, or a man who really didn't have primary responsibility around the house. Those are stereotypical examples, but they're real. And so everybody's trying to figure out what the two households look like. Then you've got the back and forth, and with the kids. And so when it comes to custody, it's really important to realize you have a relationship with your ex-spouse, but your children have a separate relationship with that person too. And you've got to allow them room. So these fights over who's going to get them on Christmas Day, if the way you resolve it is you decide we'll get them in the morning, you get them in the afternoon, then you've got a child who feels like they're there for their parents rather than it's their holiday too.
Right.
So we have to focus on what's best for the children in terms of how it's all implemented, not necessarily just with the decision.
Yeah.
So
yes. And what's written out. I mean, I've heard of cases where there's been a divorce decree, and the visitation is spelled out, very, very plainly.
Right.
But then as a child grows and they become active in their life and they have ball games
or birthday parties,
and then it falls on a different parent's custody.
Right.
That maybe that you would allow flexibility for something like that, but not see it as, well, that parent's trying to steal extra time,
right,
or that parent talked them into it.
Or it's my weekend.
It's my weekend, right.
That's what parents say all the time. So like this past weekend was homecoming for a lot of communities, and that stirs up a lot for families with separate households. So first of all, it's your child's weekend, and there is a schedule of who has responsibility when. So if you can start to look at it as a parent, when am I responsible for my child? So it might be you're responsible for your child on Thursdays after school until 9 o'clock, or until you take them to school the next Friday, and then the first, third, and fifth weekend. If parents can begin to look at it, that's when I'm responsible for them, rather than they're my possession away from the other parent. So let's use homecoming as an example, because it's pretty common. And we could say birthday parties and all the other examples you gave, Rusty. But I'll tell you, the homecoming is a big one, because kids are usually nervous about homecoming. Their peers are involved. It's very visible to other people. So if it's Dad's weekend and he says it's my weekend, so the mom can't come for pictures, that's ridiculous. What you have to be able to say is, as the dad, it's my weekend because I'm responsible for my child from Friday after school until they go back to school on Monday morning. It's the third weekend of the month, and it's designated that I'm responsible. And then you negotiate with the other parent, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm not comfortable with you coming to my home, but when they take pictures at the Shops of Legacy, or they take pictures wherever the large group is going to meet, then, that's where they're going to be, and we can both be there together. But you, as the parent that's on the decree that it's the weekend you're responsible, you take the lead, but not at the exclusion of the other parent. Same thing with soccer games. We've got kids looking on the sideline, whether their parent's there or not, and they don't understand why mom's not there. Well, mom's not there because she can't stomach being around dad.
Right.
Okay, but it affects the child.
Yes.
So figure out a way to do it, even though it is technically dad's weekend. That's just the way they say it, or mom's weekend. you can still go to that soccer game. You just got to manage that conflict in a healthy manner, because your child needs to be able to look and see both of you there.
Right. Whether you're not sitting together or whether, you're just there off in the distance, but you're still the parent, and you're important to me. And then when you see that your child really wants you to go and the mom is like, please go, that you're not spiting or getting that parent back by not going, you're hurting your child.
And as a mom, you don't say, I would have been at your soccer game, but it was your dad's weekend, and I just can't be around him.
And he's with his girlfriend, or she's with his boyfriend.
And it's just, it's just so ugly. It's just so horrible. But I would have loved to have been there. I just want you to know. Yeah. Okay, that is not healthy for a kid. Yeah. What's healthy for a child is that, think of the anxiety that causes a child, because then that child, sometimes what happens is kids start to lie. They start to say to their dad, I have a stomach ache, I don't want to go to the game, or I left something at mom's. They start taking control because the parents don't have control. And they start doing it as a way to self-soothe and to try to deal with the conflict because the parents aren't dealing with the conflict well.
Yeah. So it's now, it is, the emotional elements are now starting to kind of boil over into the child's well-being. What about using a child to find out what's going on in the other household?
Okay, can I just say it? I hate that. And let me tell you why. Because the position that puts a child in, and let's be fair, Rusty, sometimes kids ask to do it. Mom, if you want me to, I'll record it when I ask it.
Oh, that's terrible.
So, it doesn't matter whether it's a child or the parent. It's such an unhealthy thing. And it's unhealthy because you're teaching your child to be manipulative. You're giving them a double message. You won't like it when they do it to you. They're trying to control their environment. Okay, well, as parents, we need to create an environment where our kids can feel emotionally secure. So it's horrible. And there are a number of instances as a child custody evaluator where I have data, what people have done to try to prove something, but it's at the expense of their child. So somebody out there might be saying, well, Dr. Fletcher, shouldn't they try to prove it? Okay, but don't use your child through that. Protect your child from that. And if you're in a highly conflictual divorce, talk to your attorney about it. Because here's what happens, and I'll be very brief. This is what happens. Something's brought into court. Say it's a divorce that's an ongoing divorce. Custody hasn't been decided. You're in the middle of all the conflict after someone filed. And then you have a recording that your son made when he was talking to his father about something. And you present it in court. Okay, no matter what, the chances are very high that that dad is now going to confront that child. And then what happens is the child is left somewhat unprotected emotionally because he's got to answer to it. So there's more conflict. You're inviting more conflict. Yeah. And then it's hurtful because you've included the child in your conflict in a way that they don't know how to handle. So it's one thing to ask your child to get data from mom's house or dad's house. But it's another thing of what do you do with that data and the trauma that causes a kid because that data becomes visible. And that's just not okay.
It's also one of those things when they get older that could blow back right in your face, and it didn't work out the way you wanted to, and your child all of a sudden is very spiteful of that parent who'd asked that of them, and when they're old enough to realize and really put the pieces together that you used me.
Yeah, and it comes back, and I'm telling you, it comes back. And it hurts you when you do those things. You just don't see it immediately, and you think it's a good investment, and you think it's in the best interest of everybody. It's not. The casualty is going to be your relationship with your child. So before we go to the next break, I want to give something I think is really important that you just touched on, is that what you and I are talking about here as clinicians working with families is that we're talking about what people do wrong. Okay, I want to be clear. It's not just what people do wrong. Mm-hmm. It's that they had an alternative, something that was healthier, and they didn't do it. Children need to be given the opportunity to develop healthy skills on how to deal with things, conflict, feelings, adaptability, the ability to be flexible, the ability to manage change. All those are developmental things kids need, that we need to make an investment in as parents in our kids because they need those skills as adults. So if a child is doing the unhealthy things, recording the other parent for one parent, all those things, they go off into adulthood not only more likely to do those things in a work environment, God forbid they don't get the raise or the position they want, or their boyfriend goes out with a friend or does a school project in college with a friend and they start manipulating. It's not that they're just going to repeat the unhealthy behaviors or tools. It's that they didn't learn the healthy tools. So the example I give is that if you have a bad reading teacher in 3rd grade, then look for a really good reading teacher for your child in 4th grade to remediate. Don't go back and start just campaigning that teacher was bad in 3rd grade. Do what's in the best interest of your child. They missed a good opportunity for healthy work with math or whatever it is, and now we need to give them something to overcome that. So kids need to learn healthy skills in relationships. So it's the absence of those healthy skills that's the real trauma, not just what you do wrong.
And I think that another thing just to kind of add to that is that there is a positive. I mean, your child is watching how you're working under these conditions.
Yes. And
to see that, you are in the middle or you're handling yourself well. And because they're wondering, I wonder if my mom still thinks about my dad, or my dad thinks about my mom, or my whatever the family circumstances may be. And they may be looking for little subtle hints or clues as to, how, do they just not exist to each other anymore? So in a sense that they may be sniffing around for some little hints of that. And if there's an inkling of anything negative, they'll pick up on it.
They will pick up on it, and
they'll
take
like sponges.
Responsibility. Yeah. They'll think it's their fault.
They're very egocentric at this age.
Exactly.
I think that's it's something that a lot of parents don't realize.
They don't. So it's important just to be, get educated on some of the things that we're talking about today. There's lots of books that you can buy on Amazon. I have some things, through my website that people can see. But, get educated.
And I think that we're going to go into that in the next segment. But just real quick, a quick statement on what people can do to maybe bridge the gap. We'll come back just a second. We'll be right back after these messages. It's a longer than I thought.
Guns mean different things to different people. For some, when they think guns, they think crime. For others, guns mean hunting, recreational shooting, or competition. Many men and women see guns as the key to protecting their families. Hi, I'm Tom Gresham, host of Gun Talk. No matter how you feel about guns, you now have a place to talk about it. Join me Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m. on Talk Radio 1190.
I had memory foams, I had feather pillows, and I'd always wake up with neck pain. After sleeping on my pillow, I didn't wake up with the headaches, I was more aligned.
I didn't realize the connection between the pillow and sleep. When I switched to my pillow, I got a better night's sleep, and I love it.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it holds that support all night long to take the pressure off your shoulders and keep your neck aligned so you get the best night's sleep of your life.
MyPillow is machine washable and dryable and comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and an amazing 10-year warranty. Plus, every MyPillow is made in the USA.
I personally guarantee that MyPillow will be the most comfortable pillow you'll ever own.
MyPillow is now offering 50% off their 4-pack special, plus free shipping. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-480-1941 and use promo code iHeart. That's 50% off plus free shipping. Don't delay. Order now.
Relying on monitoring your credit and bank statements to protect your identity?
Here we are as an innocent zebra scans the sea of tall grass.
That's like being an unsuspecting animal at the watering hole.
The zebra doesn't spot the stealthy lion and his big white teeth.
By just monitoring your credit, you could miss a hidden threat, like someone getting a loan in your name or someone feasting on your 401k.
The lion leaps. And it doesn't look good for the zebra.
With LifeLock, you can see more. We detect a range of identity threats, even your info being for sale on the dark web. Have a problem? One of our U.S.-based specialists will work to fix it. Of course, no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but we'll help you see more of what's trying to sneak up on you. Join for 10% off. Head to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS. LifeLock. More detection, more protection.
If you've been injured in a car accident, don't wait. Pick up the phone and call the law boss. Car accident attorney Michael Uvalli. Available 24/7. Hurt in a wreck? Fight for your check. Call 1-800-LAWBOSS or go to lawboss.com.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we are discussing split households because of divorce or separation with Dr. Susan Fletcher. And in the previous segment, we were discussing the custody element and the negative aspects of it. But then we started talking about the positives. And what I wanted to go into is, there's an opportunity here because kids, they are egocentric. I mean, they look at themselves and, am I the reason that they're divorced, or am I the reason they're not getting along? And there's an opportunity here for kids to actually start to develop a positive from something that was not so positive.
Right.
So I want to talk a little bit about this, pursuing more of those healthy ways and making a positive out of a negative, like lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
It's difficult enough to see that the parents aren't together. But then you're understanding that they do care about you and they love you, and that's the really the sign and the message you want to send to your child.
Right.
So how do we talk to our kids more about this in a positive way? The split up, maybe a custody situation, in a more positive spin.
Okay. So I like that you're saying positive spin. I always use the word healthy because sometimes it's not positive. And for people who may be listening to this who are still hurting from their marriage ending and this may seem overwhelming if we ask anyone to be positive. But if we ask them to be healthy, that's better. I tell people in relationships all the time, sometimes it's important to think of what do I need to do to be healthy versus happy. Because sometimes what makes us happy isn't healthy. And we could give all those examples for all of us. So for many areas of our lives. And then I want to mention, you said egocentric. That's a word that you and I use a lot, but I want to just help people that are listening understand that, when you have a child and you come home and, just intact family, just adolescents, somebody that's 13, and you come home and you say, and they say, what's for dinner? And you say, oh, I'm making meatloaf. Ooh, gross. I hate meatloaf. Are you going to make that again? I would love, let's just go out. That's an example of a child being egocentric because it's all about me. They don't care that, you're on a budget or, you thawed the meat out and you got to use it tonight or it'll go bad. It's all about me. So when we say egocentric, I want to make sure people understand they already see that with their kids is that it's all about them. They're more important than other people. They're not narcissistic. They're adolescents. And that's a normal developmental thing. But that combined with some of the highly conflictual stuff that can happen in a divorce or when there's two households, many times that becomes an ugly piece of them, and we foster it. We encourage it more because it might satisfy us. So we have to be careful because as parents, our job is to help our kids negotiate their developmental stages, including the egocentric aspect of adolescence, and not let them get away with it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not the way the real world works.
No, we're setting them up for huge disappointment. My oldest son just graduated college and just started a job, and he, the first day at the end of the job, he called me and he said, Mom, because I said, call me, and, I just want to know how it went. And he called me and he said, Mom, I was so disappointed. Do you know I don't get my benefits for 60 days? Can you believe that? The first day, they're not even giving me health insurance. And then he said, and do you realize I only have an hour for lunch? And we have to clock out? I had to stop myself from giggling because I said, yeah, I know. That's kind of the way it works. Rather than, oh, I can't believe it. Why don't you talk to your boss about that? Okay, no, that's the way the world works. It's not about you.
Right.
So it's important for us to not forget their developmental tasks, and just because there's a divorce doesn't give us as parents free rein to feed their egos or to give them too much power. So a lot of times parents understand that if I address that.
Yeah.
So one of your other questions was how can we be healthy in the way that we respond to kids?
And healthy meaning like the ups, the downs,
the
recoveries.
Right.
But not necessarily like the details of all the negative.
Right.
But a parent might be down and maybe sad and a little out of it, but then, okay, I have to get up. Let's just go. Let's go take a walk. So it's important for kids to see things like that.
It is. In fact, I think it's important in any family that you don't hide negative from your kids. I had a situation with I have 3 boys, as you know, and they one of my kids got into some makeup that I had in the bathroom, and he was like 8 years old, and he was using it for a project at school on his poster, and it was expensive. And I was really mad at him. And when he went to bed that night, he said, Mom, you still mad at me? I said, yeah, I am. I'm still mad at you. but I still love you, and I'm still going to sit here with you while you go to sleep, and I'll take you to school in the morning, and I'll be a little less mad tomorrow, but I'll still be mad. I wanted my kids to know that mad and angry and disappointed are healthy emotions. It's what you do when you feel that way. Mm-hmm. It's not the feeling itself. So what we're talking about today with this subject matter, it's the same thing. So if, a lot of women will say to me, well, I don't want my kids to see me cry. And I'm like, okay, so then when they cry later, they're going to freak out because they've never seen anybody do it and know it's okay. So it's okay to say, you know what, I'm really mad at your dad right now. I'm not going to go into the reasons why, but I'm going to get over it in time. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to support you having a relationship with him. You have to own it as a parent. And a dad has to say, your mom and I, when we get together, we do have conflict. And they may not use those words. Those are my words.
Right.
But I want you to know I'm working on it. I need you to be patient with me. You say that to your child, just be patient with me. And I want you to know because of you, I'm going to do everything I can to have the best relationship I can with your parent. There's 3 things I tell people kids need from us as parents that are really important, and they feed into everything else that they need. They need to feel loved. They need to feel significant, and they need to feel capable. So when you start saying, I'm sure your dad will say no if you ask him if you can go out with friends on the night that's his night. Okay, you interfere with those 3 things. Mm-hmm. So loved, capable, and significant. So what you do is you encourage your son if he says, Mom, I want to talk to Dad about this, or Dad, I want to talk to Mom about this. Just as if they said, I want to talk to my boss about a raise. You don't make it about the boss. You make it about how do you ask for something and what are the healthy ways to do that. So you give your child some skills rather than use it as an opportunity to talk about what a scoundrel the other parent is.
Right.
So feeling loved, significant, and capable, that's why we don't talk about it as it's my weekend as a parent with you. Versus it's better to say it's my responsibility. It is your weekend. You're the one that has the birthday party. So your dad and I will spend some time talking about how we're going to figure that out. Yeah. Because that helps them feel loved, significant, and capable.
And I think that it could actually send a pretty powerful message to your child if you say, look, I know it's my weekend and I really want to see you, without guilting them. Right. But I know this is important to you, and I support you, and I think it's important for you to go. So I want you to go, and you and I will catch up again sometime.
Right.
And the emotion and the experience a child would walk away with a statement or a gesture like that would be just so magnificent. Right?
But let's take it one more step, Rusty, because you and I know that's a healthy behavior in their own relationships later. Mm-hmm. So if kids learn how to do that from their parents, they're going to enter into their own relationships with healthier skills in their own relationships. The fear we have is kids that grow up in divorced families are destined to be divorced themselves. Yeah. Okay, well, not necessarily. There are some people, because of a divorce, a family came together and got the attention they needed to have the skills that they were lacking. And so there are plenty of people whose parents, and you just used your example at the beginning, that they gain healthy skills because of it. It gives them a reason to get healthy. And that's unfortunate. I wish it didn't take divorce, but it is one of the outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, there are some positives that can definitely develop from that. And I think conflict resolution is probably one of the more powerful ones that is an ongoing for 18 years, right?
Right. And people need that with their roommates in college.
Yeah.
People need that with their bosses. They need that with their neighbors. And so we have to look at it as I am responsible as a parent to give my child the skills that when they launch on their own that they can use to be a healthy individual and have the greatest chance of success in their own relationships versus the child saying, I'm never getting married. Look what happened to my parents. No way. Okay, that isn't what the outcome should be.
Right.
And there are ways to prevent that being the outcome.
Letting them see. I mean, I think that they're watching the entire time, and we have to know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Susan, tell me a little bit about how can people find you, and tell me about your practice. I've known you for a long time. We're I know your family. We're friends. We're close. Tell me.
You know why, Rusty? Because you're one of the good guys.
Thank you. So are you. You're one of the great ones as well. How can people find you?
So I have a website. It's FletcherPhD.com, and anyone can go to my website, and there's really good content on my blog. So you just click on blog, and some of what we've talked about is on the blog. It's good information, not just about divorce, but also just about healthy relationships. But people who are going through a divorce and are having difficulty with 2 households, they're going to find a lot of information there. The other thing is I have a newsletter, and if you go to my homepage on FletcherPhD.com, you can sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get things in your inbox that just give content. I do have an e-course, which is called How to Help Your Children stay healthy in your divorce that people can purchase. And that's on my home page also, and they can purchase and get that information today. I'm not going to, fool them and say, you can't have it for, until you pay me more money, Yeah. But that's the only thing on my website is that e-course that there is a fee related and all that's in there. But everything else, all that content's free. My newsletter's free. And my job, in my opinion, is to get content out there. And if it makes a difference and helps people stay out of a highly conflictual divorce or out of a divorce or helps their kids develop to feel loved, capable, and significant, then I've done my job. So all that's there on FletcherPhD.com.
Excellent. And one statement to sum up the entire topic of parenting in a household. What's one statement that you would want parents to walk away with from listening to the show today?
Mm-hmm. Is that that kids are not doomed just because there's a divorce. In fact, it could be the beginning of a new opportunity for them to learn the skills to have healthier relationships with both parents as well as all the other people in their lives.
And that's a powerful statement. It's not over. Our job as parents will even go beyond college because complications and life skills and the different things that life throws at you, it changes. So your wisdom is needed throughout a good majority of their life,
yes.
College and beyond.
And I know that with a child who just graduated college.
Our kids are growing up. It's crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah, to hear an update on your son, I was just really blown away. I mean, time just really flies by.
It does.
It really does. Well, you've been listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano. I want to give you some information on our show. If you go to Facebook, the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, you can actually listen to the show. It's going to be broadcast there on Spreaker and on the website, onlinebiofeedback.com. There's a new link that's just up and running, and it has all the shows. You can go back and listen to archive shows that we have, and I will have this one up this afternoon. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Susan. So great to see you again.
To see you.
And you guys have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next week. Take care.